I used to have a political science teacher who said that politics ain't no game of beanbag. If you don't believe that, just look at the history of Aaron Burr. They used to settle their political disputes by having a duel, and Aaron Burr won. Alexander Hamilton, not so good. Well, Dennis Brennan has written a book. He titled it DC Swamp Strikes Back, Aaron Burr, Donald Trump, and Their Similar Battles. Wow, you mean this has been going on for 200 years?
Exactly.
Well, welcome to the truth, Dennis. Dennis Brennan, he hails from the land of Lincoln. So we're going to get into the similarities between Donald Trump and Aaron Burr and the history of our country. Now, I had dinner one night at 17 Barrow Street in Lower Manhattan, and that was Aaron Burr's coach house. It's now called One If by Land, Two If by Sea. It's a great little restaurant filled with history, I might add. So tell us about the similarities between Trump and Burr.
Well, both Burr and Trump were outsiders. When Burr was chosen to be the vice presidential candidate the first time with Jefferson, and even the second time, he was considered an outsider, not one of their guys, basically, one of the Virginia group. Trump, as we know, wasn't involved in politics at all. So when he came on the scene, same kind of problems with those that are already in the establishment, or what many are calling the deep state or the swamp.
Well, now, I think that analogizing the deep state to the outsiders, or the opposite of, is trivializing the deep state. Frankly, I mean, today the deep state, I think, is the intelligence community, and they do things that are flagrantly against the law. We can start with murder, like the 35th president of the United States.
Well, yeah, I mean, the deep state, I guess there's different names for all of that, and there's been battles with the deep state over the years. I think there was one book that listed, I think, 6 different battles. But yes, Kennedy was probably the most notable one to battle the deep state, the CIA, those that are entrenched in power and pretty much can do whatever they want. Maybe the swamp is bigger than that, because you talk about all the other things that make up politics. The media plays a big role, for instance, or has played a big role.
When I think of the swamp, I think of more the bureaucrats that are entrenched, the military-industrial complex, all the special interest, and, as you correctly identified, the media. You put all those in the basket and shake them up, maybe they're deplorable. Was that what Hillary Clinton was talking about, the deplorables? Maybe that was a bit of projectionism, actually, now that I think about it.
Sometimes that's the case, isn't it? But it is a basket of, whether you would call them deplorables or whatever. They are kind of all working in sync and together to get what they want, which is often not what the administration wants or what the people want.
And now you could lump in all the NGOs that we've learned about, like Stacey Abrams' NGO that collected $2 billion from Biden on his way out, no less. But look, she's got 89,000 toaster ovens to show for it. Now that's worth some serious bucks.
Yeah, I would say the NGOs were a new one. I didn't realize that until Elon Musk and Trump were going through these things with Doge. And I don't think it's something that's actually spread into the states, because if you look at their state budgets and counties and cities, they're doing a lot of the same type of grant work where they have not-for-profits set up. And then the question, of course, is who's profiting from the not-for-profits. As you say, Stacey Abrams that time, but there's more than her.
Oh, for sure. There are thousands of NGOs, and it represents billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. And I think they are somewhat of a new revelation, at least to the American people. I think that many of them have been around for a long time, but they've grown in significance and in their importance and their corruption. So we're just now, the American people are now starting to learn about this new battle that we've got to fight, which is to constrain these NGOs. And frankly, there needs to be a lot of accountability and a lot of scrutiny over their expenses and where they're getting their money and how they're spending it.
I would agree. And then it's always the connections beyond that. Maybe you're not giving money directly to a senator or a representative, but campaign money is coming back, or someone's relative is being hired or contracted with, and they're making out pretty well. And that's money that should have been going to a good purpose, but
Yeah,
isn't.
exactly. I call it trickle down ethics. You start with corruptness at the federal level, and as you point out, it just trickles down to the rest of government entities, from the states to the municipalities and the school boards. The next thing you know, the dog catcher is going to be on the take. Oh, maybe he already is. How do we stop it?
I think we have to publicize it and get more people. The good thing is, in the book, I talk about the media, being the Dem media. You've heard a lot of people call it the legacy media. I think it's not so much that they've been around for a long time. They've been infiltrated by party faithful. And not only reporters like, or whatever you want to call George Stephanopoulos and people like that, the people running the networks are former Obama, administration officials. And the way they cover the news, whether it's in the, hard copy newspaper, when I pick up the Tribune and read it, I read a lot of opinion in what's supposed to be a news story. On, network television, you'll see reporters or, whether it's Martha Raddatz or George or Margaret Brennan, who I'm not related to, by the way, asking questions that are so
What about
biased.
John?
No, neither one. And the problem is, for years, I think, until Trump came along, the Republicans would have those questions asked and kind of go along with the question, let them frame it. You see that being changed now, especially J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, but almost everyone in the administration that goes on any of these shows are fighting back. They're changing the framing of the question. And part of that's also, I think, due to the media landscape changing. You have all these podcasts now. You have more conservative media, Fox and others, who are getting the word out, or the alternative word out. So I think the problem has been, the media's played a big role. And it did back in the time of Aaron Burr also. We didn't have television, but we had, a party press era where, papers were basically owned by the party or supported by the political party.
Well, talk to us about Aaron Burr. He was a really interesting guy, wasn't he? He had a very diverse and storied career.
He did. And I think, Aaron Burr, the research I did, I found that, without Aaron Burr, Thomas Jefferson wouldn't have been president. It was Aaron Burr, after they lost the first time, 1796, I believe it was. Aaron Burr went to New York and basically worked the state, changed how they would get votes out of there, and was able to do that to turn New York for this Southern guy, Thomas Jefferson, to win. So Aaron Burr was a political strategist in a way. I think if there's a downfall to him, though, he's accused of many things, including, the Burr conspiracy, where they claimed he was, looking to start his own country out west and part of Mexico and start a war with Spain. All of that stuff, they really weren't able to prove, but they were able to ruin his name.
He was tried for treason twice, was he not? And acquitted both times.
He was. And, ironically, it was Chief Justice Marshall, who oversaw the trials, and he was appointed by John Adams, who wasn't a friend of Burr's, but Marshall, I think, did the right thing, looking at the law and realizing this doesn't pass muster for treason. And we often hear people, now even talk about politicians and say, it's treason. It really isn't, and it wasn't then either.
Well, I think it depends on which politician you're talking about. I mean, I've got my suspicions, and I think there's a lot of smoke where Biden is concerned. Hunter Biden took $3 million from the mayor of Moscow. He took a Porsche and diamond rings and cash from a Russian oligarch, and he took $3 million from a company in China with direct ties to the CCP, and he took money from Burisma, the energy company in the Ukraine, to the tune of about $800,000 a year. Now, why do I connect that with treason? Well, 10% for the bid guy, we can start there. I think it was probably more than 10%. And then we saw a spy balloon flying over the United States, hovering over our most sensitive military installations, including nuclear facilities in Montana. And it continued to make its way across the rest of the heartland of America to be shot down by the very courageous Joe Biden over the Atlantic after the mission was completed. Now, I don't know that that makes one guilty of treason, but it certainly raises a lot of questions that I think need a dang microscope put on it, and to look. And you look at the amount of fentanyl that he allowed to flood into the southern border. I ran for office in Georgia in 2022, and I talked to tens of thousands of Georgians all over the state. And very seldom did I go to a campaign appearance that someone would not come up to me after the event and tell me of the loss that they had experienced of a child or a loved one who died from fentanyl poisoning. And it is an epidemic in this country. It's the leading cause of death of young people. I don't know. I think it's 18 to 20 or maybe 34. I remember I had the statistic at one point somewhere in there. And we also had thousands of military-aged, fit Chinese men that were allowed to cross the southern border undeterred. And now they're embedded in America, and we don't know where they are. Now, those, to me, seem to be the indicia of at least circumstantial evidence of someone that had ulterior motives. What are those motives? It could be cash. He got plenty of it. If you talk to James Comer, he got 20 million. If you listen to the lady senator from Tennessee or Kentucky, what's her name? Marsha Blackburn, he got 60 million. Well, that's just the stuff we know about. And all this conversation about Biden's mental capacity, I couldn't care less, but it's not as important to me as Biden's corruption and whether he was working or influenced by our adversaries, and whether the money he took tainted his decision making. I think it warrants a very close examination, and as well as the people that were around him. What do you think?
Well, I think all of that should be investigated, and certainly, the passing of money, whether any of that makes the definition of treason, that's something to be discussed as they look into it. Certainly, if you're taking money, you're conspiring to take bribes for whatever purpose, whether it's to allow the balloon to fly over, whether it's to.
Well, I would maintain that allowing a spy balloon to fly over our country is treasonous. I don't think that's a stretch at all.
And if it's for the purpose that we think it is, right, that they're going over military installations and taking photos and getting information for a purpose at some point to use that information, and probably not, the only purpose. What purpose would you have to start a war? I suppose I suppose you'd have a good idea of what we have, although they may know that already. So yes, I think if you can connect all those dots, and I'm not even sure if they're investigating that though at this point.
Well, if they're not, they should be.
Well,
And that's a question to which I don't know an answer. But it is really concerning to me. And the fact that it would be swept under the rug and not looked at is even more disturbing to me. I had dinner with Jim Jordan uh, back in April, and there were just, I think, 12 or 15 of us at a small dinner party. And I point blank asked him, I said, I love the rhetoric. I love what you and John Kennedy do every day, but I want to know where the accountability is. And let's start with the fact that you have not subpoenaed Ray Epps nor his bank records to find out who was he working for on January the 6th, 2020, 2021. I mean,
mhm.
I think the American people are deserving to know. And why have you not called Michael Byrd before the Judiciary Committee and put him through the ringer and find out who gave him the order, if someone did, to shoot and kill Ashley Babbitt? These things are actually very disturbing to me. And I think they are immoral and reprehensible behavior. And the fact that we're allowing this stuff to go on and it's not challenged, it's not even really looked at, is probably more disturbing than the underlying crime.
And did Representative Jordan, did he have a reason on why none of that was done?
Oh, he did what politicians do. He pivoted. He said, "Well, there's nobody in Congress who's issued more subpoenas than I have." I said, well, "Okay, great. That's really not the question, though, is it? Where the hell is Ray Epps? What about Michael Byrd? Get their butts in front of the Judiciary Committee and have them answer the questions and bring their bank records. It would unravel it in a nanosecond."
Yeah, I thought he might say that they have to, there's so much. Just in this short time, we've talked about China. We could talk about, the border, whether it's fentanyl or how many millions of illegal residents coming in.
Well, somewhere around 12 million, according to most estimates. And
And
how many of those people brought weapons with them,
don't,
and
yeah,
how large are weapons? I mean, they interdicted what was it, AK-47s, I think, about uh, a year before Trump was elected, if I'm not mistaken. I remember reading it at the time. But these were
mhm,
serious weapons. They weren't like, BB guns and firecrackers. I mean, these were real
right.
weapons of potential serious destruction. And so to me, it's all very concerning. I love Donald Trump. I would go through a brick wall for him. But I can tell you that his decision this week to allow 600,000 Chinese students to come into our country, when we know that there were two at the University of Michigan that were bringing these fungi into the country that had the potential of wiping out our agricultural products. I mean, it is very concerning to me. I mean, I'm trying to wrap my hands around it. I'm guessing that the reciprocal is that China is allowing our students to come. And what are they taking into China? I don't know. I bet you they're not bringing in very much because China don't play.
Yeah, I haven't heard a good explanation on the 600,000 myself. And it was surprising. Uh, like you said, you know, I love Donald Trump too, but I don't know if I agree on every single thing he does. So,
Mm-hmm.
he certainly has fought.
And I don't mince words about it either. If I feel like he's strayed, I mean, I'll tell you another one that happened this week. 10% of the ownership of Intel. That's
Yeah,
not what America does. That's state sponsored commerce. We don't do that. I don't like it. Doesn't feel right to me.
yeah. I'm hoping that there's an end game with that they're going to somehow get out of that. I had seen who was it? You know, Kevin O'Leary was on
Hmm.
Gutfeld, and he was
I
saying
like
that
Kevin O'Leary. What did he say?
he said that Intel, they should have just let that company go down the drain, that it was awful, that they were behind the times, they weren't innovative for 20 years, and the better thing would have been just let it fall apart. He wasn't for the government taking a stake in the company either, which does go against American values, I guess.
Of all those talking heads, I feel like Kevin O'Leary may have it nailed as good as anybody. He and I are in pretty good alignment. I've never met him. I'd like to meet him sometime, but he's a sharp cookie. But taking ownership in a public company, that does not work for me. And if it was a bailout, then call it a bailout. Make them a government loan and get the money back, like we did with government motors, as I'm fond of calling them.
Yes, I would think those would be better ideas. Even though I'm not sure what the whole idea is of taking a stake, and until I hear a better explanation, I agree with you. It's a bad idea.
Well, back to Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
He shot and killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel. He was tried and acquitted of treason twice. He ran for president. He got he came in second. I guess back in those days that qualifies you for vice president.
Well, yeah, you ran before they changed it. You ran both. You had Jefferson and him running, but there was a tie, so everybody was available to be president. So technically, he could have been president. And that's one of the things that caused trouble between him and Jefferson, because Jefferson and Burr were tied, even though they were on the same ticket. And then the runoff between them, Jefferson thought, based on letters he wrote, that Burr should have backed out, saying, I was the vice president, I'm not going to take the presidency. And he didn't. He didn't fight for it, but he didn't do anything to back out either. And
so they actually had a runoff back in those days. The Congress didn't pick the
Congress.
The
well, it wasn't. When I say runoff, I mean Congress picked the winner out of the two tied. So you had to go get votes from the representatives.
Well, history does seem to repeat, and no one has had lawfare thrown at them like Donald Trump has. It's like nothing I've ever seen or read before. What happened to Aaron Burr was not good, but it paled by comparison. Trump had 4 indictments, maybe 5 if you count Fani Willis, I think. Well, let's see. Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, and
he had 2 federal ones.
Jack Smith. How could I forget? Yeah. So, it's to me, it represented a low point in our country, at least in the modern day, of what politicians have to go through and then dodge the bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania. We don't have the answers to that still.
No.
And I think we were deserving of it. And I think that tracks right back to the deep state as well. Well, Dennis Brennan, where's the book and how's it doing?
It's only been out since May. It's, as you said, this is it. It's available on my website, author DennisBrennan.com. It's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and about 50 other bookstores. Right now I'm just starting to get publicity out for it. I think anybody who wants to read about the history of it. And I couldn't find anyone else besides Trump and Burr who went through the battles they did. For Trump, he surprised me by successfully coming out of it and winning again. I thought and I'm sure the Democrats thought, that's why they did it, when they put so much on him, whether it's the civil suits, the criminal lawsuits, the 2 impeachments, that he would fold. Because Aaron Burr essentially did kind of fold in the end. Once he had won the case, but politically he was done and he left the country at one point.
Yes. Well, I know the president. I have spent time with him. The very first time I met him, we shook hands and we sat down in his office right across the river here at Mar-a-Lago. And the very first words out of his mouth is, and this was before all the legal harangues. He said, "I never give up. I never quit." And by God, he was true to his word. And there is a lesson in that to be learned by all of us. So thank you very much, Dennis, for coming on with us today. I hope the book continues to do well. Dennis Brennan, he's a lawyer and an author, and he's up there in the land of Lincoln, the state of Illinois. I hope you can get that politics straightened out in Illinois. Good luck with that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Enjoy
Yes,
your
you
time.
too.
All right. Bye-bye.